Welcome to the USS Pentagonal. The world's attention is currently focused on the tensions between Israel and Iran. As we know, Tehran launched a fierce counter-airstrike against Israel in retaliation for the Israeli airstrike on the Iranian embassy compound in Damascus, which killed Brigadier General Mohammad Zahedi, a Revolutionary Guard commander. The latest reports from the region on this Iranian attack continue to come in. Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, Israel's military spokesman, said that the Iranian salvo has so far reached more than 200 drones and missiles and caused minor damage to an Israeli military facility. U.S. President Joe Biden cut short a weekend visit to his home state of Delaware. Biden returned to Washington and met with his national security advisors, including the Secretaries of Defense and Foreign Affairs, in the White House Situation Room. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whose official jet took off shortly after the attack began, convened his war cabinet in a military headquarters in Tel Aviv. After all this diplomatic activity, the focus shifted back to Iranian cruise and ballistic missiles and drones fired at Israel. The impact of Iran's airstrikes on Tel Aviv and other Israeli cities was highly anticipated. The U.S. and the U.K. were reported to have intercepted Iranian missiles and drones in the direction of Iraq and Jordan. Later, reports began to circulate that some Iranian missiles and drones had bypassed these intercepts and were moving towards Israel. The IDF military spokesperson's office claimed that Iranian missiles and drones that crossed Iraq and Jordan and were heading towards Israel were intercepted by the National Air Defense Systems. The Israeli Air Force has pursued a legendary multi-layered air defense strategy over the country. The multi-layered air defense system consisting of the Iron Dome, Arrow 3, Arrow 2, David's Sling, Patriot, and Iron Beam intercepted ballistic missiles and attack drones from Iran with minimal damage. Especially the Arrow 3 defense system left its mark on the night by revealing a brand new move in the history of world warfare. Following these announcements, footage of the interception of Iranian missiles by Israel's Arrow 3 defense system, which intercepts ballistic missiles, including intercontinental ballistic missiles carrying nuclear, chemical, biological, and conventional warheads, in the outer atmospheric trajectory, was published on social media. In one of the published images, it was revealed that the Arrow 3 systems intercepted an Iranian missile in the air in an extra-atmospheric interception. The interception attempt was probably carried out at an altitude of 100 kilometers. Israeli military officials claim that the Arrow 3s destroyed an Iranian ballistic missile strike group of 2. The missile from the Arrow 3 defense system, which uses a detachable warhead that collides with the target, has a flight range of 2,400 kilometers, and a new system component was used in this interception attempt. This dramatic interception saved Israel from a major catastrophe. Following this activity, Israel continued to take security measures to prevent other missiles and drones fired by Iran. Israel announced that fighter jets of the IDF Air Force have begun a mission to intercept Iranian ballistic missile groups. It was reported that a large number of F-35 fighter jets took off from the air bases in Tel Aviv. On the other hand, threatening attacks by pro-Iranian armed proxies continued along the country's northern borderlines. In addition to direct attacks on Israel, Tehran has also been conducting disturbing airstrikes from Lebanon and Syria. According to an Israeli army spokesperson, more than 55 rockets were recently fired from Israel into Lebanon. Hezbollah claimed that they fired rockets at Israeli artillery positions in response to the latest Israeli attacks and in support of the Palestinian people in Gaza. However, IDF military officials have said that these attacks were carried out in response to Iranian missile and drone attacks against Israel. In other words, Iran was aiming to blockade Israel from all sides, but at the moment, Israeli emergency services have not yet received any reports of injuries from the missile and drone attacks. The fact that no Israeli citizens had been injured despite such a wide scope of Iran's attacks was a very interesting detail. As we mentioned, Iran had carried out a very comprehensive airstrike against Israel. The attacks against Israel, especially from the Iraqi direction, were one of the clearest examples of Iran's far-reaching plans. While many violent explosions were heard in the Iraqi city of Erbil, many users on the social media platform X shared posts about explosions in the city. It was seen that the air defense system at the base of the US-led coalition forces in Erbil was activated, and at least 3 missiles were destroyed. It is also worth noting that the UK's RAF Typhoon fighter jets intercepted Iranian missiles and drones fired at Israel from Iraq and Jordan. The UK government has stated that RAF Typhoons from the Cyprus Akrotiri base continue their mission against Iranian attacks. After all these efforts to prevent this, the Israeli government and military authorities announced that there is no critical situation in the country at the moment. Israeli military spokesman Daniel Hagari said that it was not necessary for citizens in the country to continue to remain in shelters. Mr. Hagari said that the country's Home Front Command canceled the request for citizens to stay near the shelters. This decision, which Mr. Hagari referred to in his statement, was an indication that the Israeli military believed that the threat of an imminent attack had passed. It was also an important sign that Israel was conducting an effective air defense against Iran. U.S. officials have also confirmed that despite the fact that the Iranian attack on Israel lasted for about 5 hours, the IDF's air defense systems reacted strongly to fend off the attack. The cost of attempts to prevent Iranian airstrikes against Israel, with the support of countries such as the United States and the United Kingdom, is gradually becoming apparent. U.S. officials have claimed that over $1 billion in air defense systems and other military resources have been spent to intercept the Iranian military's missiles and drones. Fortunately, despite the high cost, Iran's attacks were stopped and no casualties were reported. Of course, talks between political leaders also played an important role in preventing Iranian attacks on Israel. According to the White House, U.S. President Joe Biden spoke by phone with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The two discussed important details on how to respond to possible Iranian airstrikes. On the other hand, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin asked his Israeli counterpart, Minister Yoav Gallant, to inform the United States ahead of any possible response to an Iranian attack. The two spoke on Saturday evening, hours after Iran launched a massive drone and missile bombardment of Israel. According to an Israeli reading of the conversation, Gallant briefed Austin on Israel's defensive operation so far and stressed Israel's readiness for further attacks. These diplomatic and political contacts are likely to raise the issue of new U.S. air defense assistance packages for Israel in the future. For Israel, any assistance from the United States in this regard is vital. This is because Iran could once again prepare an attack against Israel. In order to prevent these possible airstrikes by the Israeli army, the Iron Dome air defense system in the country, as well as other deterrent and preventative defense systems, must be ready. Although Iran has announced that its retaliatory strikes against Israel are now complete, Israel cannot take any chances. However, military analysts and war experts believe that Iranian statements about the completion of the attacks may be true. Many countries around the world have condemned the Tehran regime for its attacks on Israel. In other words, Iran may not want to draw the ire of the global conjuncture any longer. One of the countries that has already reacted strongly against Iran and condemned the attacks on Israel is Canada. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said on Saturday that his country stands with Israel in the wake of the Iranian attack, which shows the Iranian regime's disregard for peace and stability in the region. Trudeau said that they support Israel's right to defend itself and its people against these attacks. Trudeau added that he receives regular updates from national security and defense officials and remains in contact with allies as Canada continues to closely monitor the situation. If Iran continues its attacks on Israel, the backlash against the Tehran regime will continue. Thank you for following us.